The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab episode 873 for Monday, Memorial Day, May 31st, 2021. Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found. We take all of that stuff, we mash it all together, we loosely form it into an agenda. Actually, we form it into quite a well-formed agenda. We just loosely follow that agenda because the goal is for each and every one of us to not suffer from seasonal allergies with pollen in their throats. But also, the goal is for each of us, you, me, John, each of us to learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include Linode.com/MGG and Fastmail.com/MGG. I can't wait to tell you actually about both of those for a few reasons that you'll hear about later in the episode. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Braun.
How are we? Other than seasonal allergies and pollen, how are we today, Mr. John F. Braun?
Fantastic.
Lantastic. I like it. All right, let's see if we can find some quick tips to share. Petter brings us the first one. Petter says, for years, iTunes, of course now Music, has had the mini player that disabled or took over instead of the main music window and shows you album art in addition to either lyrics or whatever is up next. But did you know that mini player can go to full screen with an animated background and the live lyrics feature? He says, I just noticed. It blew my mind. I had no idea. That's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing that. I like it. That's good. John, you got like big trucks rolling by. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm in the big city. That's pretty cool.
Well, I'm on the main drag here.
Yeah, so. For sure. Cool. Thanks for that, Petter. Great stuff. The next quick tip, John, comes from listener Raymond, who shares, he says, I had a problem with my AirPods where the right side was very low volume. It had worked in the morning, but one afternoon, it was low. I tried all the stuff Apple says with forgetting the AirPods, repairing them, no luck. I even tried to contact Apple first with the little messenger thing, which is great. A great way to do support through the, you can do it through the support app or the messages app eventually. And that failed because Apple said his serial number was not correct. And he went through quite a few steps where Apple kept saying his serial number was not correct, even though, serial number was there. He could show it to him. In any event, he says, later, I did a search online and about my problem, and I got a link to a discussion forum post at Apple where I found the fix to my problem. He says this is going to sound weird and strange, but it works. Several people on the Apple community had the same problem as I had, and one person had the fix. Get this. He says, take the AirPod and suck on the large opening, and that will fix it. Maybe it was earwax, aka cerumen, or whatever. He says, but I tried it and it fixed my AirPod. Now, I do have a lot of earwax, he says, but none came out when I did this. Strange but easy fix. Apple should know this. He says, so who cares if my serial number is not found by Apple? I fixed the problem. That's crazy. Yeah, it could be that there was some earwax in there, certainly. It could also be, I think that the AirPods are dynamic drivers, not balanced armatures. So it's possible that the speaker, the driver had just gotten misshapen, and by applying a little negative pressure, it popped it back into shape, which then allowed it to move air more properly and balance with both ears. So, hey, whatever it is, that's a good fix. I like that, Raymond. That's pretty good, man. So you can suck the suck right out of your AirPods. I like it. It's good.
Yeah, some like the ones I have here actually have a little kit that you can use to clear out the at least the ear portion, not the well, I suppose you could stick it inside of it though. With these, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and AirPods have a screen real close to the tip of the opening. So I mean, you could certainly scrape out any like earwax or other gunk that's in there, but I don't. There's not a kit. Like I know exactly what you're talking about. I have it with like my custom in-ears. I always have to clean the earwax out of them and stuff. But yeah, interesting. It's pretty good. Sucking it out of there. These things do, like, putting things in your ears, get used to dealing with earwax, whether or not that was Raymond's problem. It is just a normal fact of life of using these things. And it is really important to keep them clean. So yeah, there you go. All right. Let's talk about batteries here, John. We'll start with Ben, who shares has a question about his MacBook. He says, a client's MacBook, sorry. He says, a client of mine has been having problems with his spring 2020 MacBook Air battery not charging consistently and sometimes depleting to unusual levels. He's not been using optimized battery charging because Big Sur does not seem to be managing this appropriately on his Mac. But it doesn't matter. Here's his latest observation. He says the battery starts to lose power in the early afternoon. This is a window of time where clicking on the battery icon in the menu bar, there's an option to charge to full now, which shouldn't be happening if Big Sur's optimized battery charging is turned off. So that's an interesting sign. He says this does seem to allow the battery to charge somewhat. However, that option disappears later. I don't know if that's a daily cycle thing or an option that you can choose only once. I continue to not use the optimized battery charging option. We have previously tried SMC resets, because this is an Intel Mac, that have sometimes resolved the battery drain and allowed the computer to charge its battery back to full on its own, but not permanently. My client keeps his Mac plugged into power most of the time because it's at his desk connected to his OWC Thunderbolt dock for all of his peripherals, as well as an Apple Thunderbolt display. My encouragement has been that he contact AppleCare with all this evidence, but he resists because of the frequent tedium of doing so. He says, putting the computer to sleep does seem to help the battery recover, but the battery is always at 100% in the morning. Still, in the late afternoon or evening, it can dip into the 40s or 50s, even though it's been on charge all day. And the trucks continue to roll by. It's good.
Progress.
Yes, that's right. So this is interesting, John. I'm not sure what to make of this. It certainly seems like the OS thinks it should be managing the battery differently. I would try running coconutBattery on this. It's just a little utility that reads the status of the battery and shares it with you. That might, if there's something wrong with the battery, like its factory capacity has dropped or something, that might tell you. We'll put a link in the show notes at MacGeekGab.com, which you can also sign up for the email and get the show notes in your email at MacGeekGab.com. But we'll put a link in the show notes for coconutBattery to try. I would have said an SMC reset, a PRAM reset. It almost seems like Big Sur is confused. If it's not, like, it feels like it's stuck in optimized battery charging mode. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I like the AppleCare suggestion. I think something's wrong with that battery, to be honest. And it's trying to deal with it as best it can, but
yeah,
bad cell or something like that.
It maybe, yeah. Or the OS is confused. Like and AppleCare may tell you, do a nuke and pave on that before you send it in, and so that would isolate whether or not it's the OS versus the thing. You could do a reinstall of the latest update to Big Sur. That would be another way of potentially getting there. So, all right, let's see, John. I had a battery issue in the last episode that I mentioned with my iPhone, where things were draining precipitously during the day, even when I wasn't using it, but it was only happening at home. Very, very strange. And so I thought that maybe turning off, location services for like HomeKit and things like that, in case there were some geofences that I had forgotten about or couldn't find would do it. I will tell you, it did not. But I think I've found a fix, and I think listener Ben might have also stumbled on, well, I think Ben's going to tell us that this is a workaround and not a fix, and he might not be wrong, but his name's not Ben, his name's Matt. Ben was the last one. So Matt, thank you. He says, I just listened and was excited to hear that, Dave, you have the same problem I'm having with my iPhone 12 Pro battery. So mine is a 12 mini, his is a 12 Pro. He says it only drains excessively at home and on Wi-Fi. At home on Wi-Fi, I've seen battery drainage of at least 7 to 10% per hour with minimal to no use of the phone at all. It just sits on my desk and I can see the battery usage chart show a scary rapid decline. Yes, exactly the same for me. He says, if I travel anywhere else, including being on Wi-Fi, my battery drainage stabilizes to a normal 3% per hour. That's not fantastic, but it's definitely much better. He says, I've done Google searching up the wazoo and haven't found many specific cases that mimic what I'm seeing. Like you, I also thought it must have something to do with the location setting, but for me, turning off those didn't help. Okay, same. He says, I've also tried limiting background updates, etc., etc. He says, I even drew a pentagram on the floor with candles and sacrificed a chicken to appease the angry iPhone gods, but all to no avail. He says, what I found actually helped, much to my surprise, was resetting my network settings. And this is the same thing I wound up doing over the weekend, and it worked. He says that forces me to re-enter all of my Wi-Fi passwords again. I'll get to that because it shouldn't. He says, and reset some cellular settings, but it does have a noticeable improvement on the battery drainage problem, at least for a while. After resetting network settings and using my home Wi-Fi, I see the battery drainage go back to the usual 3% per hour with minimal usage. It doesn't seem to last very long for him. He says, I find that sometimes when I leave and come back to my house, if I don't use a Wi-Fi network in between, the battery will stay good. But if I say go to my office and use the office Wi-Fi and then come back home, the fast battery drain will start again. Even then, however, the pattern isn't 100% consistent. He says, I'm sure resetting network settings is just masking whatever the real issue is, but at least it helps. So I found exactly the same thing. Mine has not returned to the precipitous battery drain at home. But I don't know. I've been out and about, but I don't think I've been on Wi-Fi networks anywhere out. So that might not, I may not have, I haven't tested it the same way Matt has. But as far as it making you re-enter all of your Wi-Fi passwords, if you are using iCloud Keychain, that is not going to be the case. When you reset network settings, it wipes everything out of your phone, but it does as soon as I sign back into a network, including a cellular network, and it resynced with iCloud Keychain, it pulled all of my Wi-Fi network passwords back down again. So that's how it's supposed to work. So I'm just curious though, what is triggering this? I have a couple of VPNs installed on my phone. I don't have any of them set to go automatically, but maybe there's some magic mix. This hasn't always been the case. It seems to have started, in the last month and a half, maybe more than that, but not too much more than certainly 2021, not 2020. So it's not an iOS 14 thing, but it might be an iOS 14 point something thing. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Braun?
Or an AirTag thing? I don't know. What new things have you added here and there?
That is an interesting thought because it certainly...
Because you had issues with your tile, it would seem to be spending an inordinate amount of time. But, I mean, obviously you can just look at battery and see how much Find My is using. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. And Find My hasn't shown up terribly much. I did see one app. It was weird. It was this app that I use to track. It's called DayCount. I don't think the app is the problem, but again, I could be wrong. But in the battery usage thing, it was saying that DayCount was using lots of time in the background. Now, this is an app that does nothing in the background. And after I reset network settings, it stopped reporting that. So I feel like whatever it was being misapplied to this app called DayCount. DayCount's an app that either tracks the number of days until a certain event. So like if you're planning a vacation or something, you can say, oh, it's going to be, 42 days until I go away. Or it tracks the number of days since an event. Like, I stopped smoke. I haven't ever smoked cigarettes, but as an example, I stopped smoking, 382 days ago or whatever it was, right? Like you can track these kinds of things with DayCount. And it was applying reporting lots of background activity for it. But I don't think that was the app that was doing it. I think it was I think it was something in the background. I don't know what it was, but I don't think it was DayCount. Although I guess if it resurfaces, I will look and I will find out. I could always delete DayCount, but I have some things I track with it, which I kind of like. So yeah. I don't know what, yeah, but you might be right about AirTags, John. That could be the thing. Interesting.
Yeah, looking at my battery, so the thing that uses the most time, which isn't a surprise, is Pokemon. Number 2 is exposure notifications. That's weird. Never seen that so high on the list. And then Find My is number 3 on my phone currently.
Interesting. Huh. All right. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Exposure notifications. That's the COVID tracker thing, right?
Yeah. I've never gotten any message from it, but I guess it's talking to others to make sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Huh. All right. On the subject of, so thank you for that, Matt. And we'll see. We'll keep everybody posted as to where we wind up with this and where I wind up with it, because it seems like I'm not alone. Paul added to this conversation by saying one possible issue with battery drain while at home is if you have iMazing doing backups on Wi-Fi. He says, I think for me it was, if charging it on Wi-Fi, it did daily or weekly backups for a while. He says, I started having it do it when it would start on when it was plugged in and then continue on battery and really drain it. Yeah, I found some issues with iMazing doing this as well. When I realized it was the Tile app causing problems, and I turned off my iMazing Wi-Fi backups for exactly that reason, and stopped iMazing from running in the background of my computer just in case. So I don't think that's it for me, but definitely iMazing, depending on how you have it set, it can definitely cause some battery drain, because if it's slurping. I had a weird issue with iMazing where I had to uninstall and reinstall because it was, and I think I reported it here on the show. I definitely reported it to them. I just can't remember if we talked about it here. Trying to ride your volume knob to keep the trucks at bay. But I wound up, it would finish a backup and immediately start another one with iMazing, and it was just causing my battery to plummet. But it's not running anymore on my computer. So there you go. So, all right, we've got all kinds of questions. We've got some follow-ups from the last episode, more follow-ups from the last episode. John's going to tell us about juice jacking. The next thing that I want to do, though, if we're done on this one, John, is I want to share our 2 sponsors.
Cool.
All right. Our first sponsor is Fastmail, and I couldn't be happier with Fastmail. Yes, of course, I'm happy that they are a sponsor, but I meant what I said. I couldn't be happier with Fastmail, and that's because after years, probably over a decade of being inside of Google's email ecosystem, I have moved my primary email over to Fastmail, and I'll say it again. I couldn't be happier with Fastmail. They make it super simple. They made it super simple for me. Yes, you can get super geeky with their stuff, but they understand that for most of what most of us do with email, simple is great. Their migration from Gmail was as simple as telling it, go migrate my stuff from Gmail. And it took care of it all. It was amazing. I've never seen an email migration work this well. I've never seen a migration of any kind work this well. And one really nice part about Fastmail, you don't have to trade privacy for productivity. Fastmail for over 20 years has been a leader in email privacy, and the team there at Fastmail believes in working for you, a customer, as a person to be cared for, not a product to be exploited. This is huge. Very cool stuff, and it works so well. It works well with my Mac, obviously, my iPhone, everything. And they have not just mail, like they are a calendar server and a contact server, so you can use them for all of that if you want to. If you want to use a custom domain, they make that work super easily as well. Really, and that's what I'm doing. Like, it's very simple, and you can be part of the very best in email just like me. Try Fastmail free for 30 days and then get 10% off your first year at fastmail.com/MGG. Please go check it out. Do yourself a favor. Fastmail.com/MGG. Our thanks to Fastmail for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Linode. Look, we're geeks here. There are times when we're going to need servers. Linode allows you to get a server up and running in under a minute. I know this sounds too good to be true, but it's true. You can get a server running in less time than it's going to take for me to tell you that you can get a server running. And what's cool is you don't have to leave the server running all the time. And if you don't, then you take advantage of Linode's tiered billing, right? They have hourly billing with a monthly cap on all plans. And then they have add-on services that include backups and node balancers and Longview, 24/7 friendly support by phone, humans. There are no tiers with customer service. There's no handoffs, regardless of your plan size. And what's cool is, like, we talk on the show all the time about like running a VPN or running a Docker container or running an encrypted disk. Well, these are the kinds of things that you could do with Linode. You can also run like a Plex server on Linode if you wanted. You can run a Minecraft server. You can run a web server. You can run WordPress. All this stuff is yours for the taking over there. And even better, speaking of what's yours, you can get started on Linode today with $100 in free credit just because you're a Mac Geek Gab listener. You can find all the details at Linode, linode.com/MGG. If it runs on Linux, it runs on Linode, and you can check it out. Again, $100 in free credit. Just visit linode.com/MGG. Our thanks to Linode for sponsoring this episode. All right, John, you want to tell us about juice jacking, my friend?
Yes. So John writes in and says, I'd like to get your take on USB data blockers, not necessarily the ones shown below, but your comments on whether this is a valid issue. When I traveled, I hope I can again, my VPN is almost always on, but am I still vulnerable to this juice hacking? And it's also called juice jacking. So what is it, Dave? I've seen variations of this throughout the years, in that someone's offers a free USB drive is one variation of this, or a charging port, but has modified it to either steal data or install malware. And people even did this with DVDs as well. You could, on most older versions of an operating system, there would be a file that would, once the device was inserted, it would like auto launch, some app or malware or something like that. The thing he's talking about is someone, in theory, and I haven't heard of this happening in the wild, whereas I have heard about other things like, credit card skimmers and all that. But so what the data blocker, you may see a USB port and someone offers it as a free charging port, but the data lines are also hooked up. And so what happens is when you plug into it, rather than just receiving power, because both power and data go through USB, they may try to get into your phone and steal your data or install malware.
Right.
So what these data blockers do is they basically disable those two pins. So the advice here could be, don't use a strange free charger, even in a public place, because somebody may have rigged it, like the credit card skimmers that you hear about every now and then, as somebody attaches it to a gas pump or ATM and gets your data. So use your own power, your own charging source, I guess would be my suggestion.
It wouldn't. I think you're like in terms of like mitigating risk, you are absolutely right. However, I think Apple kind of has our backs here because when I plug a new, not a charging source, or not a charging only source, I should clarify. But when I plug a data source into my phone, the phone asks me, do you want to trust this device, right? And if I'm plugging into some rando charging port, I'm definitely, first thing I'm going to do is unplug it, and I'm going to say no, like don't trust. Because if it should just be a charging port and it asks you, do you want to trust? You don't need to trust power. I mean, you do, but your phone's not going to ask you if you want to trust power. So as long as you're running, and I think this started in like iOS 11 or something, I think Apple has our backs on juice jackers. So, yeah.
Yeah, typically. And I mean, the other thing would be, if you're, would that apply to? Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could do this on a Mac as well, but there are tools like Hardware Growler that'll show you if you plug in a cable. Oh, by the way, this is USB.
Right.
If it's just charging, you're not going to get any sort of report. So.
Right. Yeah.
So, something to be aware of, just like, free Wi-Fi, you should probably use a VPN, and you do. So watch out for free power sources.
Right. And in terms of VPNs, if you're on free Wi-Fi, but you're using a free VPN, you may not be as safe as you think, right? The free VPNs do have to pay for their services somehow, and it often involves selling your data or selling your habits, I should say, or somehow monetizing you. Like if you're not paying, you are the product, I think is the way to look at that. So there are some exceptions to that, but in general, yeah. So, all right. You want to take us to Bill?
Yeah. I don't know about this one. Let's see. I have a device. What is the device? That has both an internal SSD and an attached external SSD. I have been able to access both drives in the Finder and with the device's app. The device worked flawlessly, but now neither the app nor the Finder can locate either drive. It no longer shows up on my M1 Mac Mini in the Finder or the app's Disk Explorer, making the device unusable. The device and its drives are visible in my 4 other Mac OS and iOS machines. I've reinstalled the device's app and restarted the M1 Mac Mini with no results. Any idea as to why it's just my Mac Mini that will not recognize these?
Interesting.
Yeah, my other Mac OS and iOS. Okay. And the only idea I got here, Dave, is look at the startup security utility.
Fair.
I mean, that potentially, there's a setting in startup security utility, and I've been there recently, but I have mine set up as medium. So you can have like high, medium, and low as far as devices that it'll recognize. So change that setting and see if it fixes it. It could be the random bit flip.
It could be. Happen. Yeah, I mean that, and I'm trying to remember what that's like on an M1 versus an Intel Mac, but it's similar. I know it's not the same, but even still, like that's only for booting, not for accessing external drives. I would look in assuming this is a USB device, and again, like you said, we're talking about a device pretty generically here, which makes troubleshooting interesting. But let's assume it's a USB device. Look in system information on your Mac and see if it appears. Or if it's a Thunderbolt device, look in system information Thunderbolt and see if it appears. Because that will tell you if your Mac is even getting a signal from this device. And if it is, but it's not mounting, then maybe you've got some kind of software problem where the driver's not right, or you might need to reinstall Mac OS. But if it's not appearing there, then it could be whatever path you're taking. If it's not plugged directly in, if you're going through a hub, check the hub. Like, I don't know. That's what comes to mind for me. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. The setting I was thinking of. So in that utility, there is an external boot setting, and you can set it to disallow booting from external media. I wonder if if that is activated, it may be.
Yeah, again, that's just for booting. I mean, you're right. Like, it could be something just malfunctioning. But M1s don't generally, like, booting an M1 from an external is different, let's say. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Hopefully one of those things we suggested will help. All right. Let's see. Listener John brings us a question about ports and such. He says, like many people, I'm getting a new 24-inch iMac. He says, so I'm jumping from Thunderbolt on whatever Mac he had before that to Thunderbolt 4 and or USB-C, or is it USB 3 or is it USB 4? He says, I'm totally confused as to what kind of connectors and cables and devices I have. He says, I have a Thunderbolt 2 drive that I would like to connect just to get some data off it. I'm not going to do a migration, but I want to copy some data from that clone. Then he says, I want to replace that drive with a new Thunderbolt 4 drive. Is it a Thunderbolt 3 drive? What do I want? Question about drives. He says, I don't need a portable and I don't need it waterproof, but I want an SSD and I want speed. So I have two major questions. Are you aware? How can you help me understand the ports and the cables? And can you recommend a 1 terabyte SSD suitable for a desktop? Yeah. Okay. So let's start with your devices. USB has letters and numbers after it. The letters describe the shape of either the port or the connector on the cable. So the shape of the connector is what the letters describe. So USB-C is that connector. USB-A is a different connector. USB-B, mini USB. Well, it's not a letter, but it sort of is actually. There's a letter after it. It's usually micro USB-B, I think. But the letters describe the shape of the cable. The numbers describe the capabilities. So your new iMac has USB-C ports, and it either has 2 or 4 of them. I don't know which model you're getting. If it only has 2, then those 2 USB-C ports are both USB and Thunderbolt ports, and it's fair to call them USB 4/Thunderbolt 4 ports. Really, it's Thunderbolt 3 with all capabilities, but that's how it goes. We'll put a link in the show notes to where Larry O'Connor from OWC explained this to us. But basically, that's the net of it. If your iMac has 4 ports, 2 of them are Thunderbolt capable and 2 of them are not. 2 of them are just USB ports, but they all are USB-C ports. They just have little etchings on the back to show you which are Thunderbolt capable and which are not. And those are Thunderbolt. All Thunderbolt is backwards and forwards compatible in terms of drives. Like, I've been able to hook a Thunderbolt 3 drive up to my Thunderbolt 2 Mac using Apple's Thunderbolt 2 to USB-C adapter. It is Apple's adapter is bidirectional. Everyone else that makes one of those adapters only goes in one direction. So you definitely want Apple's for this stuff. And we'll put a link in the show notes to that. So you'll be able to connect your devices, your old devices up, no problem. Your new devices up, no problem. You're going to be in good shape. And I know this is confusing, but the good news is it's actually less confusing than it appears. That's the best way I can say it. In terms of a drive, you can certainly get a bus power or a wall powered drive, but with SSDs, generally speaking, you're going to do fairly well with the portable drives too. And there's some benefits to this. One that I really like is OWC's Envoy Pro FX, because that is both Thunderbolt and USB, right? So that way, no matter what you connect it to, it will be able to connect to that drive. Some Thunderbolt drives, of course, are just Thunderbolt and nothing else. And if you try to connect them to a USB computer, it won't be able to read them. So that's a good one. And then if you want just a USB drive, I really like the Samsung T7s. Those are nice, simple drives. They work fairly well. So that's what I go with. If you don't want a bus powered / portable drive, the good news is these all will go, full speed of their bus interface. So you're not missing out on anything. And you also don't have another power cable to contend with. But if you want a drive with a power cable, certainly you could go to Otherworld Computing and take a look at their drives. We say it during the ad spots, but it's actually true. OWC is where we go to start looking for those things. So you're going to be in good shape there. That's what I got for this one. I hope I kept it simple. I hope I kept it clear enough. Not necessarily simple. I don't know. Do you have anything to add, John?
Nope.
Okay. Good. Do you want to take us to Andrew?
Yes. So Andrew says, no need for AirTag in the car, and that I'm wasting my money on such a luxury. And he pointed us, and he makes a good point.
So this is in reference to your comment in the last episode where you talked about how you put an AirTag in your car, but you actually put it up on the rearview mirror to get better coverage with that AirTag in the car.
Much better range.
Yeah. Right. Range. Sorry. Yeah.
For a precise location. So, but yeah, Apple has an article, and sure enough, find your parked car using Maps on iPhone. In the Maps app, you can get directions to your car. When you disconnect iPhone from your car's Bluetooth or CarPlay system and exit your vehicle, Maps drops a parked car marker. Okay. So he's absolutely right, though there's just one thing, Dave. Note what it says. That it requires the car's Bluetooth or CarPlay system. Guess what?
That's right. Your car doesn't have those.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm lying, because actually, as of late, I do. So what I have, Dave, that offers similar functionality, ROAV has a Bluetooth adapter that does charging, it does phone calls, it does wireless audio, and it does car location.
That's that Anchor Rove thing, the smart charge or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. So the good news is that is a Bluetooth device. So.
Right.
So one, I do have a Bluetooth audio source. And I tested this feature. So they have a thing where, you tell it when you parked your car, or it detects as much. If you're running their app and it detects that it's all of a sudden not talking to the thing, it's like, oh, you must have parked your car.
So, but does your phone recognize that without their app? Because like what?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so you might be able to get it too, John. This is. I had a thought for you, because if your phone knows that it's Bluetooth to a car. Mm-hmm. It will usually, it's not perfect, but it will drop a pin on the map and show you where parked car is, which is amazing. It's like it saved my bacon, especially with rental cars, where I get my rental car, I drive. If I'm going to an Airbnb, the first thing I do is I stop at a grocery store to get some breakfast supplies and whatever, some snacks or whatever for the Airbnb, and then I emerge from the grocery store victorious with my purchase. And I have no idea what color my car is because I have literally only just driven it. And so, I run around the parking lot hitting the button and hopefully find it. But I've had if the car has CarPlay, I also use that in a rental car because I'm generally in a location. I don't know where I'm going. And so it will remember. And it's great. But I was thinking, if you go on your phone into Bluetooth and find your Rove adapter and hit the little I next to it, there should be a device type option in there. And if you set to car, they added this in iOS 14, you're right. But if you set that to car stereo, that might be enough to hint your phone to remember that that's a car. If it thinks it's a car, maybe it will remember the pin location on the map.
Right. Yep. Car stereo, headphone, hearing aid, speaker, other. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now you're a car stereo.
So I can't guarantee. Now, does it have a sync contacts option on that, John, as well, or no?
No.
Okay. All right. So, because that often seems to be a thing that cars ask for or cars allow. So maybe so, maybe not. But you know, there you go. So I don't know. Fun stuff. Yeah. Okay, what do we got next here? Les pointed out something interesting to us, John. Les says, have you noticed that all Apple TV remotes have the volume controls on the right side as you look down at them, where every other remote in the world has the volume control on the left side? Any idea why? I have no idea, but he's right. I checked all the remotes in my house. He's absolutely right. Like, what is it with Apple and this stuff? Like, why did Apple decide that remotes would have, like, need to be switched? I don't get it. Let us know. Feedback at MacGeekGab.com if you have the answer.
You heard him. Feedback at MacGeekGab.com.
I said feedback at MacGeekGab.com because I want to know why Apple decided to do it this way. It's bizarre. Anyway. All right. You want to take us to Adam, John?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got lucky on this one.
Yes, you did. Well, you didn't get lucky, man. You like this is experiential.
I've done this sort of programming before, so I was pretty sure.
Yeah.
Here's an issue I'm encountering that I haven't heard from anybody else. I have a new M1 Mac Mini running the current Big Sur 11.3.1. I have two-factor authentication turned on my Gmail Google accounts. When I need to log into the Mini, it tells me to go to my phone and approve the login. When I open the Gmail app to do so, I see the screen below. There's a couple of issues here. I'm not on an Intel Mac, nor am I running 10.15.7 Catalina. I did do a migration from an Intel Mojave MacBook Pro when I got the Mini, but I believe I have all my apps nativized by now. Have you seen this before? Any idea on how to correct it? It's not of any major consequence. I can approve this every time. It's just curious why things aren't quite lining up.
Oh, wait. So hang on. Everybody.
You got pixelated on me too.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was you because I was still able to like get the YouTube stream and all of that stuff. So. All right. Hang on. Give me a second here. Where are we? 40. Okay. I will bring you back. So. All right. John is back. That was weird.
All right. Where did I leave off?
You know what? Start from the top with Adam. That's fine, man.
All right. Adam says, here's an issue I'm encountering. I haven't heard from anybody else. I have a new M1 Mac Mini running the current Big Sur 11.3.1. I have two-factor authentication turned on my Gmail/Google accounts. When I need to log in on the Mini, it tells me to go to my phone and approve the login. When I open the Gmail app to do so, I see the screen below. See attached. There's a couple of issues here. I'm not on an Intel Mac, nor am I running 10.15.7 Catalina, which is what the screen says. I did do a migration from an Intel Mojave MacBook Pro when I got the Mini, but I believe I have all my apps nativized by now. Have you seen this before? Any idea how to correct it? It's not of any major consequence. I can approve the login every time. It's just curious why things aren't quite lining up properly. It may be fine now, but I don't want to get caught. Yeah, so it will come up and say, device Intel Mac OS 10, and also the location. A lot of two-factor things will ask you those, or show you that, and just to help you trust them. But he's okay. Here's the thing, Dave. One way that a web server, can try to tell what machine you are running is something called the user agent. So this is it's basically just a line of text that it will send to the web server, and then it can accommodate whatever special needs it thinks your platform may need. I'd be curious what he sees reported, and I found a dandy little link to, it's kind of like what is my IP, but it's what is my browser. And so I sent him a link to something that will tell you what your user agent is. And Dave, I believe you went through the motions and you got the exact same results. Yes?
Pause the hear me?
Okay, you're back again. You were frozen.
We lost each other again. This is very interesting. So I don't know. It's hard to troubleshoot which is which because I'm getting reports from the chat room that either you cut out or I cut out. And that was on the first one. So on the video, it's maybe seems like. But what's weird is I'm seeing other connections. Like, okay. Yeah, maybe my connection to our Melon server is cutting out. So, you're right, John. What you were explaining, depending on whether you're watching on the video stream or listening to the audio, most of you are listening to the audio, so we'll prioritize that here just based on sheer numbers alone. But you're right. It just sends this stream or this bit of text. And that bit of text may not have been updated by the developer, aka Apple. And so, John, I checked this on mine, and sure enough, my M1 Mini reports Mozilla 5.0, Macintosh, Intel, Mac OS 10, 10.15, 7. And then it says very, very far at the end, it talks about Apple WebKit 605.1.15, and then says version 14.1.1, Safari 605.1.15. So, very interesting. Yeah.
It's just sending the wrong data.
It's sending old data, I think is the right. I think that would be the right way to say it.
Now here's something you could try to see if you can get the correct results, Dave. A little tangent, but I think a useful one.
Sure.
I really would like to know what happens here. So, if you go into Safari, Advanced, Show Develop menu in menu bar, and this is a cool menu for developers, so you don't have to be a developer to do what we want here, but there's a whole bunch of stuff here. One of the choices, Dave, is User Agent, and there's a whole bunch of choices there. I'm curious what happens if you change it to another one. So it's normally set to something called Default. Which should be, but is not correct.
Right.
In Safari on your M1 for some strange reason. But you can set it to other things. I'd be curious what results you get if you say like Firefox Mac OS, for example, is one choice, or Google Chrome Mac OS. See what other browsers do.
Right. Yeah. I will check this with the M1 versions of like Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge to see which way those go. Yeah, interesting. All right. Okay. And we'll see what the connection is. I think based on what people are telling us, John, that it's an issue with my connection, at least my connection to Melon dropping out. And so which Melon is the streaming provider the streaming video provider that we use, but it's also what we use for our VoIP call between us. So yeah. All right. Hopefully now I've got 2 pings running in the background, John. So we'll see if it cuts out again. I should be able to see if it's internal with my provider or external, which is always fun. Jumping to last week, we talked a lot about backups and online backups, and listener Mark chimed in with something. He said, don't forget about Code 42, which we used to know as CrashPlan. He says, I've been using them for years at $10 per month, unlimited storage. It is a great deal, and they have a very easy to use GUI. He says, I have over 12 terabytes stored with them so far. And that's interesting. For some reason, John, I thought CrashPlan had just stopped. Maybe they just stopped marketing to home users and focused on corporate users or whatever. But $10 a month, I mean, that's more expensive than you're going to pay for, a Backblaze type of thing where I think that was like $60 a month. So, $60 a year, not a month. That would be different. So, but yeah, CrashPlan's out there. So thank you for sharing that, Mark. Thanks for reminding us. I indeed had completely forgotten about them. And then similarly, listener David said, I listened to the latest episode about backups, and I've had my own journey on this. What I used to do on my Mac Mini or MacBook Pro was I would carbon copy clone to an external drive. I would time machine to a drive on my network. I would iCloud drive, so syncing things, because all my devices have this by default. I would use Synology Drive to sync things to my Synology, and then I would have certain folders and content backed up from my Synology to some cloud-based service like Amazon S3 or Wasabi or something. That's what I used to do, he says. What I do now, I have iCloud Drive on my devices, and I have Time Machine to a drive on my network. He says, I know. I've cut it down a lot. He says, I've recently had to nuke and pave my Mac Mini and just to clean up my MacBook Pro, and did so without referring to or restoring from any of my backups. He says, I had been religiously making my backups for years, but I was able to restore the OS, reinstall apps, and once connected to my iCloud accounts, be back up and running in maybe a few hours at most. The OS install taking up the vast majority of that time. He says, we literally don't have much of anything that is truly local only now and only on one device. He says things like photos, contacts, email, documents, passwords, etc. are all either on our Synology or on iCloud, so synced somewhere. Sure, he says it's a bit of a hassle to reinstall apps and relog in, but compared to a restore of a computer, there really isn't any time saved, at least not for my use case. He says, I know it seems sacrilege to say we don't really need to do backups anymore, but as long as my content is somewhere safe, and he says safe, of course, is a relative term. He says, but for us, I just don't see the purpose for what we do. He says, I say this with reluctance and didn't come to these decisions lightly. I've been burned multiple times and lost so much data over the years because backups failed, DVDs wouldn't read, disks would fail, etc. He says, however, I also believe that we are in an entirely different world today. And given that just about everything is online or synced to the cloud, a lot of what I would normally back up is just already right there. So this is an interesting thing, John, because I don't think David is wrong. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop making my backups, but it doesn't mean he's wrong. Like, when was the last time I actually needed to get something out of a backup? It's been a long time. And he's right. Like, if this Mac just died right here, I mean, it would be a pain in the neck. It's the configuration of it that would be the thing that I would like to restore from the clone, but other than that, I mean, all my data is there. So yeah, I don't know. Backups aren't as necessary as they once were. So I don't know. What do you think?
I did get burned one time when Apple introduced the sync your documents to the cloud feature.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know what went wrong, but some of it didn't make it over, and I lost it. So fortunately, I went back in time and was able to get it from Time Machine.
Yeah.
So that's the last catastrophic event I had.
Interesting. Yeah.
So now I err on the side of redundancy, and so any my documents folder gets backed up all over the place. It gets backed up to Time Machine. I use Synology Drive to put it on my NAS, and it's also in the cloud. And then I think I actually copy it over to another cloud service as well, Dropbox or whoever, OneDrive.
Sure. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with being safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but David's point is interesting. Like, I'm not going to change any of my habits here, but after reading his email, I know, I mean, now it's going to be in my head. So I'm really going to be aware of how much do I actually use my backups. And I kind of think, like you need to wait until you have something catastrophic happen and then decide, okay, what did it take to recover from this? And did I use my backups, or did I just rely on all the stuff that's synced? I know we used to say, I think what's safe to say here, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it. We used to say that sync is not backup. I think we need to stop saying that. I think sync definitely is a form of backup. With all the versioning that happens with sync, the immediate sync of it makes sync very much a part of our backup strategy these days. So
hey, it's a copy of something on another machine. To me, that's a backup.
Yeah, and especially if it's synced to the cloud, it's off-site. So it adds, it could be on-site and off-site if you've got multiple devices and, some cloud server somewhere, either iCloud or, whatever else, Dropbox or something. So, yeah, it's different now than it used to be. So, cool. All right, you want to take us to Michael?
Yes. So Michael says, I am looking for some purchasing advice. My mid-2007 21-inch iMac is long overdue for replacement. Yes, it still works. Needs a little push now and then. I've been waiting for the M1 version, and now that it's here and exactly the same as the M1 Mini, well, not exactly. We'll go into that in a moment. I'm not sure which way to go. The new iMac will have a great monitor of that, I'm sure. Depending on which monitor I would purchase for a Mini, the price is not a lot more for the iMac when you look at adding a webcam, keyboard, and mouse. There are so many choices of monitors. It's confusing. I've decided on a 27-inch in size and think 4K is the way to go. I think a display with USB-C is a good choice for the future. I'm in Canada, and this can restrict my choices. And then he gives us his choices. So we'd like a high PPI, yes, of course. But I think any of these. So he lists 3 monitors here, Dave. So the 4K monoprice 27-inch Crystal Pro, which I think is the one that you have. He also found a 4K Philips 27-inch. Yeah. So okay, 27-inch.
Sure.
I'm curious whose tube they're using. I'm pretty sure monoprice, at least the one that you and I have, I think they're using an LG tube. I'm wondering if Philips makes their own or not. And then a 4K Dell.
We should replace the word tube with glass. They don't use any tubes, right?
Right.
Glass, not tube. But you're right. Yeah, I think you're right that it is LG. Yeah, that's right.
Panel or yeah.
Yeah.
All right. A 4K Philips. And then a 4K Dell, and actually I've used Dell in the past, even on a Mac, and they're really nice too. So among them, Dave, here, the monoprice I have here is I'm very happy with, and it's UHD. Yeah, it does UHD. It's 4K. Everything looks great. As far as the machines here, I would think most of the reviews that I've seen say that they're pretty much equivalent. I think there's some small differences from write-ups that I've seen. I think the biggest difference is the ports that come on each one. You may just want to consider your port needs, though you're probably okay because they both have, I think, Thunderbolt and USB-C and all that.
Yep.
But in different numbers. And I think you can tweak one of them. I think you can have one with one less GPU with the Mini. Is that true? So
yeah, you can do that with all of them. I think there was an option. Well, you might be right. The iMac, let me check. Because the iMac may not let you buy with the one less GPU, but I thought it did. So I'm looking at the tech specs of the iMac here. Yeah, you can buy the iMac with in blue, green, pink, or silver, with 7 or 8 cores on the GPU, and then yellow, orange, and purple only come in the 8-core GPU version. So yeah, it's all the same. You can buy it with the 7-core GPU or the 8-core GPU. I don't.
Yeah, but a bigger screen is better. And yeah, when I saw the iMac, I thought that screen's a little small for my taste.
Same. Yeah. I'm very happy with the Mini with the 5K display. And yeah, as far as displays go, I've got a couple of the monoprice displays, the various flavors of, I will find they change their versions pretty regularly. So the one that I have is slightly different, I think, from the one that you have, John, and would be slightly different from the one that you could buy today. But they basically are all sort of in the same realm. You know, it's 4K. 4K and UHD are the same thing, right? Like UHD says 4K. And so 27-inch 4K gives you a nice, good resolution on the screen. I've tried the ViewSonic screen, which has a slightly nicer panel than the ones in the monoprice screen. It's certainly noticeable, you know, side by side maybe, but it's not, it's like, depending unless you're doing something where you really need that super fast refresh rate or something, it doesn't really matter. Of course, the big difference is when you jump from any one of these, you know, 4K screens to the LG 5K screen, which I did with the Mac Mini. Of course, you'll pay 2.5 times the price for that. So be ready for that. But it's a huge difference. And because I was coming from a 5K iMac to that Mac Mini, I knew that I would not be happy with my main screen not being 5K. So my main screen's 5K. I spoiled myself. But hey, you know, I got the Mac Mini for the song. So
the only thing I would toss in is, so I found the connecting to my Intel Mini, Dave, I found that HDMI wasn't terribly responsive and that it took a while for the screen to power up and it to negotiate, you know, probably all the copy protection nonsense. I got an Amazon Basics USB-C to DisplayPort cable. Bam, it comes on immediately.
Interesting.
Now, here's what's funny, Dave, though.
Makes sense. Yeah.
The funny thing is I was looking, in the system information to see where it would show up. It didn't show up in USB and it didn't show up in Thunderbolt. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. But in displays, for this display, it says connection type Thunderbolt/DisplayPort.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's weird. You're right. It should, because it's not a Thunderbolt or a USB device, right? It is using, because those ports support Thunderbolt, USB, and DisplayPort, right? So that it like that is a different thing. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I will put a link to the latest monoprice display out there. But yeah, I found that HDMI can be wonky too. It's possible that it's the cable. But I think on yours, there was some flavor of the Mac Mini that would only do like 30 frames a second over HDMI and would do 60 over DisplayPort, I think. So like that also might impact your decision. Yeah. But then, of course, as Jeff in the chat room points out, he's like, what about the LG Ultrafine that Apple sells? And yeah, it's gorgeous. It's 3 times the price. You can find that monoprice display for $309.99. I got my, I guess you can get the LG Ultrafine, comes in both a 4K and a 5K display. The 5K new is like $1,200. The 4K is $700. I have not tried the 4K. I'm sure it is gorgeous. I'm not sure if it's worth the difference. Yeah, that would be interesting, right? Like, why? How much better could it be? My guess is not better enough for me. Would be my guess. If you're going to bother to spend that kind of money, you know, go spend it on the 5K display. But I could be wrong. You folks can let us know. We told you, feedback at MacGeekGab.com. All right. Where are we here? We've got we've got more questions. Are we good on that one, John?
Yeah, I was looking. It seems everything is 60 hertz. I'm looking at Mac Tracker, Mac Mini 2018. Everything does seem to be 60 hertz.
Maybe it was the older one that was.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, they refer to it as a Thunderbolt 3 digital video output. Okay.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. All right. Paul had, I love this from Paul. It's a great little geeky thing. We're getting towards the end of the episode here, so we reserve the right to get a little geeky. He says, I'm wondering if you can help with a time-sensitive question that covers two of Dave's favorite passions, music and geekery. He says it all has to do with virtual grade 5 music theory and the exam that my teenage daughter will be taking in early June. Because of COVID-19, it was always going to be an online exam. And because all the revision sessions and prep work with tutors have been done via Zoom, I presumed Zoom would also be used on the day of the exam. Today, I found out otherwise. He's in the UK, and he says the exam board here are setting the exam, ABRSM. They instructed parents that we must download and install a piece of software called RP Now in order for our kids to take the exam. I checked out the software and was horrified. He says, of all the things the software does, it includes a keylogger. It installs its own secure private browser. It allows the examiner to take over the Mac's webcam, enabling a 360 view of the room. It requires Flash. He says, I'm pretty sure it probably loads dodgy kernel extensions. I'm sure it won't be signed. And he says, and no doubt it would require whole system access. When I contacted tech support to see if I could run it on a Chromebook, which I could burn, aka nuke and pave, as soon as the exam was over, I was assured that the app is safe and secure and was told it would only run on a PC or a Mac. As an aside, tech support also said, I can only presume with a straight face, that I would need to turn off any virus protection I might be running, as the virus protection software would think my Mac was infected with malware. No kidding, he says. He says, the reason for all this preamble is my daughter's been working really hard for months and is set to get a really good grade for her exam. Because of the current situation, she can only take it online. Given that I have to run this malware software, the best option I can think of is to use one of my older Macs, set it up a fresh non-admin account, download the software, get online via my guest network, and then after my daughter has taken the exam, I could delete the account and then nuke and pave the entire Mac. He says, if I wipe the Mac and start from scratch, do you think the reformatted Mac will be free of any nasty remnants from this, or do you have any other ideas? So, yes, if you take that path that you described, Paul, a nuke and pave would almost certainly, I would feel very comfortable that that would get rid of any of this. But I feel like there might be another answer. If it were me, I would install some sort of virtualization software on my Mac. Either, if you don't have Parallels or VMware, VirtualBox will probably do what you need. And I would just do it that way. That way you're compartmentalizing the whole thing, and you are essentially able to nuke and pave without having to pave afterwards, right? Because you can just delete the virtual container when the exam is over, after your daughter has aced the exam. We're sending good vibes out for that. We know that's going to happen. So after she aces her exam, you delete the container and you're done. Your Mac remains, unmessed with, and you're good to go. So that's how I would do it. But a separate Mac, assuming the software will run on a separate Mac, would be another way to go. So, what do you think?
Or boot off a clone.
Sure.
Make a clone dedicated to just exam, and then when you're done, wipe the drive.
Simple.
Though I like your VM thing, and actually, I've done that in the past. So I went through a phase at one point where I would goof around with you get those pop-ups saying, oh, your Mac's infected, call this number so we can, fix it for you. And I'm like,
sure.
Yeah, let me play with one of these guys. And so I called, and, and then, they asked me to do a log me in or something like that session. And they, at that point, I actually cut them off, but if I had wanted them to continue, what I would have said to them eventually is, by the way, you're attacking a VM, so nice try. It's like, what do you think? I'm an idiot? No.
Yeah, what do you think? Right? Yeah, exactly. No, that's if you have some free time and you want to play with those types of people, a VM would be the least unsafe way to do it. I don't want to say that it's completely. Like, you definitely need to keep your wits about you in those scenarios, for sure. But a VM certainly rules out a lot of harm that they could do, for sure. So, but I like the idea of an external, like just boot from a clone. I would say, and several in the chat room are also saying this, once you boot up, eject the internal drive, because it will likely try to auto mount or auto mount. Do not let it auto mount if it asks, or do not let it mount if it asks, I should say. And if it does mount, eject it. That way, when you're installing and running the software, it has less of a chance of being able to touch that drive. So, yeah, interesting. All right. Well, we're on the music thing, sort of. So we'll go with Keith here. Keith asked, he said, in the past, I used GarageBand to change the pitch of audio files. If the band I play in wanted to cover a song in a different key, I would load the song into GarageBand, make the necessary changes, and then distribute the track for everyone else to use while practicing. It was very easy. However, I only use GarageBand a few times per year and would find that every time I opened it up, major UI and functionality changes had taken place, causing me to have to Google my way through the task at hand. Apple's made it increasingly difficult to accomplish this pitch change of audio tracks. I used to be able to accomplish this with 3 or 4 mouse clicks. They are now burying this functionality deep in the application, making it unnecessarily complicated. Do you have any idea why? Well, no, I don't have any idea why. You'd have to ask the project manager at Apple that question. But what we offer here are solutions, or at least workarounds. And we definitely have had our share of workarounds with GarageBand over the years. GarageBand, for those who might remember, used to allow us to program chapters into our podcasts. That went away. We do it differently now. We use Auphonic to do it, which is great. For you, I think a similar path is in order. Don't mess with GarageBand. Check out Capo, which is an entirely different kind of app. It's from super mega ultra groovy.com, and Capo is built to help you with exactly what you're doing. Not only will it let you alter the pitch, it'll let you alter the speed of a song. It'll show you the chords in a song. So rehearsing things, if you want to slow it down and practice it, woodshed it a little bit slower and then speed it up and get better at it, you can do that. It figures out the time signature, and it mostly gets all of this right. So Capo is definitely the tool I would use for this. I wouldn't even consider using GarageBand. I realize I'm not solving your problem with how to make GarageBand easier, but the way to make this process easier is to go get Capo. It's available for the Mac, iPhone, iPad, and Chris Licio, who makes it, is he's a genius with this stuff. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it. That's the path to take. So if you, and this is true for anybody else, if you're learning an instrument, Capo is awesome because you can take your favorite song and break it down and actually learn, get into the guts of it. And Capo takes you there. So it's good. All right. I got one last one. John, you have any thoughts on that before we,
Nope.
Okay, I got one last one in the music category here, and that comes from listener Patrick. I don't think I have an answer for this, though, John, so we're going to call this a geek challenge. Again, feedback at macgeekgab.com. Patrick says, do you know any way to make an iOS device continue to play background music, either on the music app or Spotify, while I search non-audio sites like news? It would be great to use it for background music while doing that or writing in notes or whatever. Every time I select one of those options, my music stops. So if you're jumping to an app, first of all, I feel like I might not be understanding this correctly, because jumping to a different app, music keeps playing in the background for me. That's part of what iOS lets it do. And that's true for the Apple Music app. It's true for Spotify for me. That definitely happens. But if the app that I jump to wants to make any kind of sounds at all, then the music will stop. Like if I jump to the news app and there's videos or whatever, obviously, boom, music stops. So the question, I suppose, is there a way to keep the music going? We know that it is possible, because if you're listening to music and directions are happening on your phone, either from Apple's own app or from third-party, apps like Google Maps or Waze, the music can keep going. It just ducks it down when it has to say the directions to you, and then it brings it back up. That also happens with other apps, like and it's smart enough, like Overcast, the podcast app is programmed to know that it should stop and not just duck it down because it's a conversation. Generally, it's going to be playing podcasts. So, there is a way, but I'm not sure that there's a way we get to control that. So, but it may be some third-party app out there. It is built to do things that way. So let us know. That's what I got for today, John. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
At MacGeekGab.com.
It is. It's feedback at MacGeekGab.com. That's what it's going to take, man. That's
now, one thing I did notice, though.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get more audio than I expect.
Oh?
Well, when I was connecting, so normally I'll have the volume off on my phone, and I'll be gaming, and I don't want to hear the game music because it gets annoying after a while. But yeah, if I connect my phone to this Bluetooth adapter, and then I go to the game, it starts playing music, and I'm like, why is it doing that when I told it be quiet? I don't know. The sound rules are kind of unusual.
That's perhaps the best summation of this that we've had. The sound rules are kind of unusual. I'll go with that. That's what I got for today. Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds like you got a lot of activity out there this morning. That's exciting. Hey, we are recording on Friday again, not on Sunday. So definitely you have more traffic on your road on Friday than Sundays. That's for sure. But that makes sense.
And the governor said, get out there and commerce and
right. Oh, that's true. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like
he
things are
explicitly
opening
said,
up.
Get out of the house and like do stuff.
Yeah, it's good for us. Yeah, air ourselves out a little bit. Yeah, it's good. All right, stay safe out there, folks, as you are airing yourself out. Yeah, good. All right, that's what I got for the episode. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Do we have, of course, thanks to our sponsors. Make sure to check them out. Fastmail.com/MGG to save 10%. I meant what I said during the ad spot. Like I am a convert, and I am a happy convert now. And then get your $100 in free credit at Linode.com/MGG. Do you have anything else to add, John, before we say goodbye here?
No.
Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Make sure to check out MacGeekGab.com/sponsors. Of course, our thanks to CacheFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the episode from us to you. Thanks to all of our premium subscribers. MacGeekGab.com/premium. We have a fix for the app. My apologies. I meant to put it in the episode, but if you open a notification from the app, it will fix it. And then we have an update coming too, so it's there. Anything else to share, John?
Well, it sounds like if you get the update, you won't get caught.
Made up.